During the broadcast interruption, just 45 seconds, N'Golo Kanté shared a secret and everyone in that room froze. The interview was supposed to be simple. Standard post-match protocol. N'Golo Kanté sitting across from sports journalist Claire Pemberton in a London studio, discussing Leicester City's remarkable Premier League title run. The cameras were rolling. The lights were bright. Everything was perfectly controlled. Until it wasn't. At exactly 4:47 p.m. on March 15, 2016, the broadcast feed cut out. Technical malfunction. The kind that happens occasionally in live television, a momentary glitch, nothing serious. The producer's voice crackled through the studio speakers. Hold positions. We'll be back in 60 seconds. The bright interview lights dimmed slightly. Camera operators lowered their equipment. The boom mic technician relaxed his arms. 12 people in total were in that studio, crew members, a few producers, Claire, and Kanté. What happened in those 45 seconds was never recorded. No cameras captured it. No microphones picked it up. But every single person who was there that day would carry it with them for the rest of their lives. Because N'Golo Kanté, the quietest man in football, chose that moment to speak. But let's rewind. 3 hours earlier, Kanté had arrived at the studio in his usual manner, 15 minutes early, driving himself in a modest car, carrying nothing but a small gym bag. He'd greeted the security guard by name, asked the receptionist how her daughter's exams had gone, and sat quietly in the green room reviewing nothing because he never prepared for interviews. He didn't need to. Kanté's interviews were famously brief and humble. He deflected praise. He credited teammates. He spoke in short, simple sentences that revealed nothing personal. In 3 years of professional football, no journalist had ever gotten N'Golo Kanté to talk about anything beyond tactics and team spirit. Claire Pemberton had done her research. She knew Kanté's statistics, his incredible interception rates, his tireless running, his transformation of Leicester's midfield. But she also knew the gaps in his story. The years before professional football. The silence about his family. The way he deflected every question about his childhood with a gentle smile and a change of subject. She'd prepared soft questions. Nothing invasive. Just enough to humanize him for viewers who saw him as a quiet machine rather than a person. The interview began normally. N'Golo, congratulations on another incredible performance. How does it feel to be part of this Leicester miracle? Thank you. The team works very hard. Everyone contributes. But your individual contribution has been extraordinary. Do you realize how highly rated you are right now? A modest smile. I just try to do my job. Standard Kanté. Deflect. Minimize. Redirect to the team. Claire pushed slightly further. You came to England from France just 8 months ago. Was the adjustment difficult? English football is very fast. But my teammates helped me. And before consigned you, you were working in the 2nd division. That's quite a journey in just a few years. For the first time, something flickered across Kanté's face. Not discomfort exactly. Something deeper. A shadow that passed and vanished so quickly Claire almost missed it. Yes, he said simply. Claire glanced at her notes. She had one more question prepared, a gentle one about his family, about whether they'd seen his transformation. She opened her mouth to ask it. And that's when the broadcast cut out. Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The studio lights dimmed. The red recording indicators on the cameras blinked off. The producer's voice announced the technical hold. 60 seconds. Claire sat back in her chair, relaxing her professional posture. She smiled at Kanté. Sorry about that. These things happen. We'll pick up in a moment. Kanté didn't respond. He was staring at something on the small table between them, a glass of water, her notepad, and a small framed photograph she'd brought as a visual prop. It was a generic image of a football team celebrating, meant to be shown during a graphics package. But it wasn't that photograph Kanté was seeing. His hands, which had been resting calmly in his lap throughout the interview, suddenly clenched together. His fingers interlaced tightly, knuckles going white. His jaw tightened. Those gentle eyes that always seemed to be smiling suddenly glistened. Claire noticed immediately. "N'Golo? Are you all right?" The crew members were chatting quietly among themselves, checking equipment, not paying attention to the interview subjects during the break. But Claire was watching Kanté's face transform, and something told her this moment was important. Kanté reached into his jacket pocket. His hand trembled slightly, the first time Claire had ever seen the famously composed midfielder show physical uncertainty. He pulled out his own photograph. Small, old, creased from being carried and touched many times. He placed it face down on the table next to hers. "May I tell you something?" His voice was so quiet Claire had to lean forward to hear. "Something I have never said in any interview." "Of course," Claire said softly, instinctively understanding that this was off the record, this was human to human, this was trust being offered in the space between broadcasts. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. "The reason I don't talk about my family," Kanté began, his French accent thickening slightly with emotion, "is because most of them are not here to see this." He turned the photograph over. Claire looked down at it. A family photo, grainy, clearly from years ago. A woman holding a small boy. Several other children clustered around. Everyone smiling. "That's my mother," Kanté said, pointing with a finger that shook slightly. "And that's me. I was 4 years old." Claire waited, sensing there was more. "She died when I was 11, Kanté continued. His voice remained quiet, controlled, but underneath was an ocean of grief held carefully in check. "Heart failure. We were very poor. She worked cleaning offices at night, taking care of us during the day. She never slept. And one day her heart just stopped." The studio was completely silent now. The crew members had stopped their quiet conversations without quite knowing why. Everyone was watching Kanté speak, though he was only looking at Claire. "My father had already passed when I was young. So when my mother died, we were 8 children. No parents. No money. Just each other. N'Golo." Claire's professional composure was cracking. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was confession. "My older brothers and sisters raised me," Kanté said. "They worked multiple jobs. They made sure I could go to school. They made sure I could play football when other children had money for proper boots and I had." He smiled sadly, tape holding mine together. He touched the photograph gently, reverently. "When I run on the pitch," Kanté said, "I am not running for myself. I am running for my mother who never stopped working. I am running for my brothers and sisters who gave up their dreams so I could chase mine. When people ask me why I never stop, why I cover more ground than anyone else, why I never complain about being tired." He paused, struggling with emotion. "It is because I remember my mother cleaning offices at 3 a.m. so we could eat breakfast. I remember my sister working 2 jobs so I could have bus fare to training. How can I be tired? How can I stop running? They never stopped for me." A sound escaped from one of the crew members, a suppressed sob. Claire had tears streaming down her face, not even trying to hide them. Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. "There is something else," Kanté said, his voice even quieter now, almost a whisper. "The reason I am telling you this now, in this moment." He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old. Worn at the creases. Clearly carried for years. "This is a letter my mother wrote me before she died. She knew she was sick, though she never told us how sick. She wrote each of us children a letter." He unfolded it carefully, as if it might disintegrate. "She wrote to me in French," she said. His voice broke slightly. "She said, 'N'Golo, you have a good heart. Never let success make it small. Run hard but run with kindness. Win but win with humility. And when you have enough, remember it is not for keeping. It is for sharing. The studio was frozen. 12 people barely breathing. Every time I sign a new contract, every time I earn money, I send it to my brothers and sisters first, Kanté said. Every time someone tells me I should buy a bigger house, a faster car, expensive things, I think of this letter. I think of my mother saying success should not make my heart small. He folded the letter carefully and returned it to his pocket, next to his heart. That is why I drive an old car, he said simply. That is why I live in a small apartment. That is why when people see me in the same jacket for 3 years, they think maybe I am strange. But I am not strange. I am just remembering. Every day I am remembering who made this possible. Claire couldn't speak. Behind the cameras, a veteran cameraman who'd filmed thousands of interviews was wiping his eyes. The boom operator had set down his equipment and was standing with his head bowed. And then the producer's voice crackled through the speakers again. 10 seconds. We're coming back. The moment shattered. The spell broke. The lights brightened. Camera operators lifted their equipment. The red recording indicators blinked back to life. Kanté quickly took his photograph and his mother's letter and returned them to his pocket. His face transformed back into that familiar gentle smile. The vulnerable, grief-stricken man who had just shared his soul vanished, replaced by the professional footballer who deflected every personal question. Claire understood immediately. This had been a gift. A moment of trust. And it was not for broadcast. Welcome back, she said smoothly, her professional voice steady despite her tear-stained face. We were just discussing Leicester's remarkable season. N'Golo, what's next for the team? We take each match as it comes, Kanté said with his trademark humility. We work hard together. The interview concluded normally. Standard questions. Standard deflections. To anyone watching at home, it was just another brief, humble interview with football's quietest superstar. But in that studio, 12 people carried a secret. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. After the cameras stopped, after the lights fully dimmed, after the official interview ended, Claire stood and extended her hand to Kanté. He took it in both of his own. Thank you, she said simply. No, Kanté replied. Thank you. For listening. For understanding this was not for. He gestured at the cameras. I understand completely. Kanté released her hand and turned to leave. He'd taken 3 steps when Claire called out. N'Golo? He turned back. Your mother would be very proud. Kanté's eyes filled with tears again, but he was smiling. That genuine smile that rarely appeared in public. I hope so, he said quietly. I try every day to make it so. He left the studio the same way he'd arrived. Quietly, thanking every crew member by name, asking the security guard if his back was feeling better, waving goodbye to the receptionist. Claire stood alone in the darkened studio for a long time, looking at the empty chair where Kanté had sat. The producer approached her. What happened during that break? He asked. Everyone's talking about it but no one's saying anything. Claire looked at him. Something private. Something real. And it stays in this room. The producer nodded slowly. He understood. The crew made an unspoken pact that day. No one leaked the story. No one sold it to tabloids. 12 people kept a secret because they understood they'd witnessed something sacred. A man trusting them with his grief, his mother's memory, his reason for running. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 3 months later, Leicester City won the Premier League. Impossible odds. Miracle season. N'Golo Kanté was named in the Team of the Year. At the celebration, while teammates sprayed champagne and danced, Kanté stood quietly to the side. He pulled out that old photograph and his mother's letter. He whispered something to the image, words only he and his mother would ever know. The letter stays in his pocket. Every match. Every training session. Every day. And he keeps running. For her. For them. Always.